Welcome back to the Communication Mastery podcast with me, Mark Burlinson. In this season in 2026, we're going to spend some time looking back and replaying some of the episodes that some of you have asked about in your comments. And in between those, I'm going to be back with little snippets each week of helpful information that you can put into practice in your business, in your life, to help you grow your communication mastery. This week, I want to talk with you just for a little while about different ways that your team can grow their communication mastery. In other words, what are some steps you can take beyond simply listening to this podcast? Where can you go from here to apply some of this stuff to begin to deepen your team's communication mastery? Some of the things that I can offer as part of that process would be communication assessments, as well as facilitated workshops for your team to be able to understand communication more fully. And then I love to follow up those workshops with coaching for either for individuals or for specific small groups within your team. In fact, I had somebody the other day just said to me that what you do, Mark, is a hybrid of training and coaching and organizational development. And that, I think, really does sum up what I bring to any business when I come to help them grow their communication mastery. Because there's a great deal you can learn just from listening to some of these weekly episodes, but at the same time, until you begin to apply it on the ground in your own setting, you don't gain the full benefit. You may have been growing your understanding, but the rest of your business, the rest of your team, the rest of your organization really needs to be able to grasp some of this more fully in order for you to see the benefits that they can bring. So here are some different ways that your team can grow communication mastery. Of course, listen to this podcast. That goes without saying. But then the next thing that can really help is to get individual communication style profiles for each of your team members. Because, as we've said many times on this podcast, self-awareness is really the starting point for effective communication. So getting those individual communication style profiles really helps each person to go, oh, okay, yeah, that gets me. This is how I'm wired. This is my preferred way of communicating, but I also understand that makes me different from other people. I see what I have to offer, but I also see some of the gaps or some of the areas where people who are different from me might rub me the wrong way if I wasn't aware of how I'm wired. So those individual communication style profiles really make a difference as a starting point for growing communication mastery. And then second thing that can make a big difference is to bring the team together for a session, a facilitated workshop, basically. That could be, ideally you want 3 or maybe 4 hours together to be able to have discussion and interaction around what we're learning, but to be introduced to all 7 communication styles, like that's a team that you're hiring or a team that you get to know. Actually, to be honest, 3 or 4 hours isn't very long, is it? But it's a starting point, at least, where your team can begin to learn the benefits, the quirks, the characteristics, the qualities of each of those 7 communication styles. And everyone will identify with something in each one because we all have all 7, as we've said before. But a facilitated workshop really gives you the setting where in discussion you can really unpack a little more of what it means to be able to leverage those 7 styles. There's a phrase that I use very often in workshops, and I think it helps people to understand why they need the workshop. It's, I want to give you the ability to hold a team meeting in your head between these 7 different communication styles that are all in here, and they're all doing their thing, but you need to understand what your team is comprised of, just as you do in the real world, in your business. As you're seeing the team members of your team working together, you begin to identify what each one can bring to the table. Well, you've got 7 voices in your head, and you need to make sure you listen to all 7 of them to get the full benefit of the communication styles wiring. Then there's a third thing that will help the team after that presentation, after a facilitated workshop, is to have a kind of diagnostic discussion, have a review discussion after the workshop, where we come back together after maybe a couple of weeks of seeing this in practice in the day-to-day life of the business or in the day-to-day interactions of the team, to come back together and to look at, so where were some areas where we saw the strengths of these communication styles really make a difference for us? Where are some areas where we still had conflicts or we still had misunderstandings? What can we learn from those times? What can we learn from those incidents? Which communication styles were in play? Did we miss something? Was there some area of distress in that communication? Having a diagnostic discussion, having a review session really helps the team take this to another level. When you hear the 7 styles initially, we tend to apply them to ourselves. But when you get to a diagnostic discussion a couple of weeks later, then you start to recognize how this applies to other people as well as to me. And then something that can help in a lot of business settings is then to gather the leaders or the managers or the team leaders, whoever that may be, the leadership teams or the leadership group, to have a follow-up session with them to really support their integration of communication understanding into the rest of what they're doing. There are tools that I can use where each team leader can be really empowered to make sure they don't miss any of the communication styles in the way they're leading their team, whether it's in the way they're conducting a team meeting, or in the way they put out an email to the whole team, or in the way that they handle individual members of the team. So those follow-up sessions can be very valuable because the team leaders are now growing their communication mastery, and now we're beginning to apply it specifically to the situation on the ground in that team. And something that I've seen different businesses really take up recently, and this is something that's relatively new for 2026, I'm starting to create what I'm calling communication advocates. So I interact with 1 or 2 people in a business on a weekly basis, just sending them a prompt or a helpful guide or a reminder, something that will help them to keep communication skills at the forefront of the day-to-day life of the business. So this could be maybe your office manager, if they're the key person who can see where miscommunication's happening, or maybe it's the business owner wants to stay up to speed to make sure we keep communication central as a key performance indicator for the business. Or it may be 2 or 3 of your mid-level managers who are really interested in communication and how it applies, and with a little more input from me and the ability to come back to me with questions and comments, that interaction can really help the business. So that ongoing support, you don't need me to come in every week to help your team meeting be more effectively focused on communication. You need a couple of communication advocates within your team, and we can arrange that as well. So those are some of the ways that your team can grow, and each one builds on another, if you like. Often a question I get is, well, so how long does this take and how quickly will it work? I've seen typically there's observable change. The initial change can often be seen in as short as 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks at the maximum. So you're already beginning to see the impact when each person has taken an individual communication style profile and we've done a workshop. Within 3 weeks, you're going to see differences in the way those teams are operating, in the way your folks are relating to one another, and particularly in the way they're applying their understanding into their task or their role or their interaction with the customers. And the things that change would be understanding of a customer's needs so that you can make a connection more quickly. That fruit is often seen most quickly on the sales side, as your sales teams, particularly if their communication wiring is strong in those styles that lend themselves to sales, and usually they are, of course, but when they begin to learn to adapt to others rather than simply using their own strong sales style, they can adapt and know that here's a person who needs action, just get to the point, get it done, get it finished. Or here's somebody who needs much more explanation because they're much more thoughtful. Or here's somebody who needs to be related to on an emotive level. They need to understand that we care about their problem, or we need to be enthusiastic about the The changes that come from understanding communication will be reduced tension within your business, as well as clearer collaboration. Improved collaboration is one of the things that increases the profitability, increases the productivity, increases the impact of whatever it is you're doing, whether you're a non-profit serving a particular segment of the community, or whether you're a business that's producing manufactured items. Collaboration is always the key to being fruitful and successful and profitable. And then another thing that I've seen is that there's less turnover as the team leaders, as the managers within the business begin to understand more of the insights of the communication IQ system. Then there's fewer frustrated team members. There's a greater productivity because there's less miscommunication. The profitability goes up because you're not constantly retraining or training new people because of employee turnover. People don't leave companies well, they leave for all sorts of reasons, I suppose, but the primary reason I see is because they don't feel they fit and they don't feel understood. And so if you can understand somebody and show them where they fit, that's going to reduce your turnover dramatically. And that'll save you all of those costs of hiring and retraining and bringing in new people. Just the same as it's a benefit to your business if you can retain existing customers by understanding them better, rather than constantly looking for new customers. So that kind of lack of frustration, greater productivity, greater profitability is another change that we see. And then longer term, as leaders in a business, you're able to assign roles more effectively because you understand people's profiles. I could put this person into this role and maybe they've done it before, but they didn't enjoy it, but I need them to do it. Or maybe there's somebody else on the team who's got a different profile that would actually be a great fit for this need that we have. Being able to understand different people's profiles, not that that defines a person and restricts them, but it does give you insight into the way that person's wired. It won't tell you what they can do, but it will tell you how they can do it. And that is so often a valuable insight for a business owner or for a team leader. And then you can also get clearer communication between the leadership and the workforce. So your folks feel more engaged, your employees feel more connected to the leadership. Disconnection is such a powerful tool for causing problems in businesses. So the opposite is also true. A greater sense of connection brings flourishing, brings health to the whole corporate workforce. And so as you get into that clarity of communication, you're going to see differences in so many different ways. So those are different ways your team can grow communication mastery beyond simply listening to these episodes. And if you'd like to take up one or more of those, I'd be happy to help you. Just give me a call, drop me an email. All the information is on my website at markburlinson.com. We'll see you next week with more insights for communication mastery. And until then, have fun applying what you've learned today. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. It would mean a lot to me if you'd rate and review the podcast so it helps more listeners to find us. But also, would you give me your feedback on things you'd like to hear about in future episodes? And remember to share the episode with a friend if you see something that would benefit them as well. You can reach me with feedback through my website at markburlinson.com. Just click on the contact button and send me a message. I respond to everyone personally, and I really want to hear from you. So thank you again for listening, sharing, reviewing, and giving me your feedback.